life itself actually has no meaning. Have you ever heard of the term seeing is believing? The proper way to phrase that is actually believing is seeing. And I say this because reality objectively doesn't actually exist. We only extract meaning from it through our own subjective experiences. So this goes back to the idea that no two people physically experience the world in the same way. Because, and at this point, even science has proven it, we don't live in an actual physical objective reality. It's more like a video game, a simulation, something that gets rendered as required, as needed, which creates illusion of space and separation and all of that, just like in games, right? Where in reality, it's just all happening on this computer screen, where everything is actually just code that runs a script of probability waves to collapse things when we need to see them. But this also factors into the equation your own beliefs and perceptions, which is why we go back to saying no two people will ever experience the world the way it is. So there is no physical world. That's why I say life itself has no meaning. But you're responsible for the meaning you extract from it. You decide what it's going to mean. And hopefully by the end of this video, you'll get a better idea of the way you can actually start to approach your life once you start to understand that the purpose maybe isn't to just go through the same expectations and the same path that everybody suggests. Because in reality, there can't be one path, since we all experience life completely differently according to our own beliefs. So then obviously there's supposed to be a different path set for each of us instead. So I want you to imagine this. Our soul is like this big ball of energy, this big sphere of energy. And when it decides that it wants to experience anything, just to learn, just for the sake of experiencing it, it starts to become a part of it, becomes denser and denser, and almost crystallizes down into this physical body of ours. And that's how we start to interact with this physical reality. Just like we've learned in quantum physics, how things can be both a wave and then eventually change into matter based on if we observe it or not. Our soul is initially this big wave of energy, this big sphere, and we crystallize down into more dense matter to experience this physical reality. So you don't actually live in the world, you don't live in reality, it lives in you. Okay, so your physical body is within your soul. And it's almost like this whole physical reality, this experience is, or your physical body is just a dream within your soul. And obviously when you die, you eventually wake up from this dream and go back to your soul. But the reason why it's important to understand this is because initially we come into this world and we think that this is a separate place, that we just come in here, we experience, you're thrown into it, and over time you're supposed to pick up certain rules to survive, and then hopefully you accumulate enough things that make you feel good about yourself and you can call yourself successful based on cultural norms, and then from there you can become happy all of a sudden. But obviously we realize that so many people spend their whole lives doing that. They either don't even get there, or they get the things they thought they needed and it still doesn't change anything. So clearly that model doesn't really work. But instead, what if the approach changes to, you're actually a soul, you're not a body with a soul, you're a soul that has a body, that decides to create its body, crystallized down from energy, because it wants to experience certain things. And the best way for us to experience in this reality is through duality. That's how it works. If you wanted to know what it feels like to be really hot, then you're probably going to want to at some point experience what it's like to be cold. So winter, for instance, right? So knowing this, then anything your soul decides it wants to experience, the best way is for it to use contrast, because now you have something to compare to Everything in your life that you've ever experienced can only be described in relation to something else. So you always need these 2 points of reference. That's why we have duality. So then, if your soul decided it really wanted to experience being rich or have a lot of money, the best way for it to do so and really appreciate what it means to have all those things is going to be to design a life where it experiences poverty, extreme poverty, actually. So this completely reframes your entire life from thinking that you're a victim because certain things happen to you, and instead realize that actually I'm the one behind it all. I've purposely chosen these things because this is what I want to experience and learn. So the video game analogy really works well here because it's almost like you're the player that decides to load up this game and you design your character, you customize it in a certain way because of a specific experience you want to go through, right? If you have multiple paths, multiple characters you can play, and you know each of them is going to go down a slightly different path, then you're going to pick the one that you're most maybe curious about. And in this world where like attracts like, if we've now established that the best way to really appreciate something and understand it and experience it fully is to first understand what it's not. So we use polarity, and then using the concept of attraction, the law of attraction, like versus like attracts like, you're actually going to attract the so-called challenge or suffering, the opposite of what you want, on purpose. So you're actually bringing it to you. It's not happening to you, you're choosing it. So when you start to go through life thinking you need help because all of these bad things happen to you, actually you need more awareness. You don't need help. You need to understand that this is intentional. This is the way the system works. There's an orchestration behind it. All of this challenge that you're going through has been orchestrated. You've come into this world with specific limitations, beliefs, which is the character customization, and your job is to experience life through these unique set of beliefs and constraints that you've chosen for yourself, because you understand that these constraints are going to bring about certain events in your life through attraction, because the idea is these constraints are going to be things that you judge by design, but you attract what you judge until you no longer judge what you attract. So you bring these things into your life and it's going to feel like challenge and suffering. But the idea is using awareness. Once you learn to accept these things through all of the things we talk about in the other videos, neutralization, understanding that beliefs only tell you a story if you choose to listen to it. So when these things come into life, the idea is that these are going to be invitations for you to use your awareness to recognize that these are lessons I've chosen to learn. So yes, you're going to suffer at the beginning, but the idea is you move past the suffering once you learn from it. This is what enlightenment is, if you want to phrase it that, although it's not somewhere you get, it's more so a moment you get to experience temporarily. So the idea is when these challenges come your way, you're supposed to learn from them, neutralize them, accept them, love them. And then that judgment that you hold eventually fizzles away, it dissolves, because it serves its purpose. You've gotten to experience that thing, you've moved past it, you've accepted it, you've loved it, so you don't hold any judgment towards it anymore. And that's it, you move on. And that's the equivalent of beating the level. It's done. And then the same thing happens with the other judgments you hold. And that's how you get to experience life. Imagine I told you, the problem is when you've been stuck in it for so long, you feel like your life has just been a continuous suffering, but it's only because you never tried to actually learn the lesson you were supposed to. So you're stuck in the loop. This will keep coming into your life until you decide to learn it. Because so long as you judge it, it's going to come into your life. Why? Because you wanted it to. That was the whole point. So you're going to be stuck on the level until you finally beat it. Okay, but most people don't know that they're in a level. They don't know that they're actually playing the game, which is why they don't even have their eyes open. They're not even trying to beat the level. Okay, but once you do, obviously, nobody wants to just stay on one level for the gameplay, the entire movement through the game because you want to level up, right? That's the point. You play a game because you want to beat a certain level, go to the next one and beat a new level and experience new things and try new things. So that's why you get to experience a momentary period of, let's say, gratitude, relief, enlightenment, if you want to call it that. But at some point, you then ask yourself, okay, now what else do I want to learn? What's the next thing I want to experience? In the same way that a lot of humans do this with material things, where we get something and we enjoy it for a little bit, and then we quickly start to ask ourselves, okay, what's next? But in this case, we're doing it with experiences in a way. So once you do that, now the next level comes. And it's the same process over and over again. So when you understand that that's actually the way things are, it's by design for your own evolution and growth. And I'm sure if every single time you look back at it, all of these times where you went through something really difficult, now you look back and you probably have learned the most from those specific challenges. In the same way that people usually tell you when you look back at your teachers in your life, usually you don't remember the nice ones, you remember the ones that taught you the most, right? And those might be the tough ones. So that's the same idea here. If we stop labeling challenging situations and suffering as bad and instead recognize that suffering is actually the means from which we learn the specific lessons we want, then now suffering becomes the path to enlightenment. But when you don't realize that and you're just stuck in the suffering, you're not learning the lesson. In a way, that's your punishment. It's that you get to do it over and over again until you do. So you feel like you're stuck. But as soon as you start to shift the way you view the world, in which it starts to look like everything is always happening for me. I'm choosing everything consciously because I want to learn these things. I want to experience them. I've said this before, but you go to watch a certain movie because you understand that it's going to be challenge, suffering, villains, heroes, and eventually they win and they beat them, yes. So there's that temporary relief, that gratitude, that temporary enlightenment, right? If we were to compare it. But eventually, the movie ends, and then you go again with a new movie, with a new plot, a new suffering. It's the exact same thing. All of these are just fractal versions of our lives. We've unconsciously actually created all of these things as a projection of our true innate selves. That's the life that we live. It's the exact same. All of the games we play, you wouldn't ever play a game that has no challenge in it, that has no growth. You want to play things that you're going to learn stuff from. And eventually you're going to want to level up and do new things. So you start to live your life from the perspective that at any point in time, wherever I'm being challenged, where I hold judgment, is an opportunity for me to learn something. There's a lesson. There's a level to beat. So we come into this life with a set of constraints, a set of judgments, which also, funny enough, determine a lot of times your values. And so that's the compass that you're supposed to follow. That's the purpose behind why you're here, by design. That's the path, that's the game you decided you want to play, the experiences, the levels you wanted to experience. So look at everything as a conscious choice. Nothing happens to you. It happens through you, through your own decisions and for you, to learn, to experience certain things and develop your soul, your consciousness, through the buildup of these new experiences, these new perceptions that you gain. And this is only unique to you. What you attract in your life is purely unique to you because it's based on, your beliefs. Nobody has your beliefs. You might share some similar ones, but nobody has the exact same set of beliefs. That's why you end up experiencing completely different lives. There is no objective reality. We all experience it based on our beliefs, which bring in certain experiences to us because we want them to do that. So we've chosen our beliefs, our restraints. We come into this world with them because we know that's what's going to bring certain challenges and suffering, which then allows us to learn certain lessons, move past them, and gain those insights. How much more beautiful is life when you realize that there's this big divine orchestration behind it? There is no good, bad, evil. And it's this big fun game. Yes, it might be a simulation, but it's our simulation. We chose it. We chose to come here. Yes, it might be a dream, but it's a fun one that you wanted to come here. There's a reason behind coming here. And this is why you can take any objective circumstance in life, and I guarantee you, or even any kind of like material object, and you'll always find people on both sides of it. Because their perception, their set of values is going to determine whether they find that thing enjoyable or not, whether they desire it or not. You have people that are into cars, people that hate them, people that love cooking, people that hate cooking, people that think you should be keto and carbs are bad, and then people on the opposite side. There are always people on both sides. Nobody's right or wrong. Everybody is simply pursuing what's in line with their own set of values, and that's exactly what you should be doing. That's the whole point. If there was one objective path, then we would have all just followed it a long time ago and figured it out through trial and error. But instead, when we realize that we all have our unique values and we should instead pursue them, then every single person has their own unique path they should go after, their passion, their purpose, where they're authentic. And by doing so, they get to fulfill their purpose. So please, I invite you to sit with yourself and just practice awareness. Realize you don't need any more help. This is all within you. You've designed this completely. You don't need anything outside of you. You just need to learn to become more aware of the design. Hopefully this helps you realize this, and then start to train yourself to look for these lessons when they happen. Look for what you're supposed to realize and understand, and it starts with where you hold judgment. And if you check out some of my older videos, you see how we can approach neutralizing judgment, which is how you can learn the lesson, and it's through acceptance. Speak soon.